Al-Lāt, Al-Uzzā, and Manāt. So for a lot of us, these names probably bring up images of ancient statues and pre-Islamic history. But what if the Quran's message about them isn't really about history at all? What if it's about a timeless psychological pattern, one that affects us right here, right now? Okay, let's really get into this.
So the story we usually hear is pretty straightforward, right? These were three goddesses, and they were worshipped by the pagans in Mecca before Islam. They were idols, plain and simple, symbols of a time that revelation came to sweep away. And that's pretty much the baseline, the historical account that most of us know. But this is where it gets really, really interesting. If we kind of set aside that tradition for just a minute and go straight to the source text itself, well, a completely different picture starts to emerge. The Quran's focus is not at all where you'd think it would be.
Just think about that for a second. In the entire Quran, these three famous names show up exactly one time, a single mention. That fact alone is our first huge clue that maybe the real message here isn't about historical figures. It's about something way, way deeper.
So here they are, the only verses where these names appear. Now look closely at what's not here. There's no description of what they looked like, no backstory on who worshipped them, no talk of any rituals. It just asks a question. Hey, have you thought about these names? And right after that, the whole conversation pivots away from history and straight into the mechanics of the human mind. What comes next isn't some big condemnation of stone idols. It's a conceptual dismantling of how we, as humans, create things to worship in the first place. It seems the Quran is way less interested in the what and far more interested in the why and the how.
And boom, here it is. This is the core of the whole argument. The text says these things aren't gods, they're esma, names, just labels that you and your ancestors literally invented. I mean, that's a radical shift. The problem isn't the rock or the statue, it's the act of naming something, of creating a concept and giving it a power that it just doesn't have.
So, what are asmat? Well, in the Quranic worldview, names are how we make sense of reality. The names of Allah, for instance, point to real, tangible attributes. But we humans, we can also invent names, constructs, ideologies, entire systems that are totally hollow, with zero reality behind them. And that's the accusation here. You've just created a bunch of empty labels.
This is the next logical question, right? And the Quran answers it immediately. If these are just empty human ideas, what gives them such a powerful grip on people's hearts and minds? Well, the answer comes down to two really basic drivers of human behavior.
So the text identifies the two culprits, zan, which is assumption, and hawa, which is the soul's own desire. This right here, this is the psychological engine that powers the worship of anything man-made. So let's break these two down.
First up, zan. Now this isn't just a simple guess. It's a full-blown conviction that you hold without any real proof. It's what rushes in to fill the void when actual knowledge is missing. It's that little voice inside that says, well, this must be true because it just feels right, or because everyone I know believes it. It's belief built on sand.
And hawa, well, hawa is the gasoline you pour on the fire of zan. It's that deep internal pull we all have toward what we want to be true. It's our biases, our comfort zones, our tribal loyalties. Desire is what makes an assumption feel so comfortable and so right, pushing us to believe something simply because it serves an emotional need.
And because these names are built on this flimsy foundation of assumption and desire, they lack something critical, what the Quran calls sulṭān. Sulṭān means real authority, genuine proof, a grounding in actual reality. These human constructs, they have no sulṭān from God. They're totally unmoored from the truth, just floating on human psychology.
And it gets even deeper. If we look at the possible root meanings of the names themselves, as you can see here, they don't seem random at all. Al-Lāt can be related to twisting the truth. Al-Uzzā comes from power, which suggests a kind of manufactured might. And Manāt connects to desire, or basically wishful thinking. So, in a way, the names themselves are just labels for the very psychological flaws that created them in the first place. It's amazing.
So, this brings us to this universal pattern that the Quran is laying out. It all starts with an unproven assumption, van. That assumption gets supercharged by our personal desires, hawa. That powerful combination leads us to create a name, an asma, which could be a system, an ideology, or a tradition. And the final step? We submit to that creation as if it held real, genuine authority. So the whole point is this incredibly sharp contrast. On one side, you have guidance from God, which is grounded in reality, has true authority, and exists completely outside of our own personal preferences. And on the other side, you have these names, these constructs born from our own assumptions and desires, with absolutely no authority behind them.
But the verse doesn't just diagnose the problem, it also offers the solution. It clearly states that ḥudā, or real guidance, has already come. So the alternative to following our own self-made constructs is to turn to the guidance that is grounded, that is real, and that's revealed by the source of reality itself.
And this is exactly why this message is so powerful for us today. This isn't a history lesson about statues in the desert. It's a timeless warning about our very human tendency to create our own authorities, whether they're cultural traditions, political ideologies, or even religious systems, and then follow them with a devotion that should only be for what is actually truly real.
And this forces us to ask some really tough questions, doesn't it? Could any system made by humans, if we follow it without question and put it up on a pedestal, could it become one of these names that lacks any real divine authority? And maybe the most personal question of all, it makes us look at the things we follow in our own lives. Where is that line between a valuable tradition that we inherit and a truth that's grounded in something beyond human invention?
In the end, the Quran leaves us with this incredibly powerful and pretty sobering thought. The challenge then is to tell the difference between reality and the labels we create, and to make sure we're following that which has true authority, not just the echo of our own assumptions and our own desires.